Welcome to In the Shop, where we spotlight the vendors and innovators helping franchise dealerships succeed in a modern retailing environment. I'm your host, Sean Rains, and today I am joined by a transformational leader and visionary with deep experience in the automotive industry. Mark Queen is the CEO at SKAIVISION, and he has years of success building successful businesses, so no one should be surprised that he is once again innovating in a category near and dear to dealers' hearts. SKAIVISION uses AI-powered computer vision to give dealerships real-time visibility into service lane operations, eliminating bottlenecks, improving CSI, enhancing safety, and driving measurable gains in efficiency and revenue. And can I just say, one of my favorite things about hosting these conversations is I often know the guests. So trust me when I say you're going to learn a lot from this conversation. So let's get into it. Welcome to In the Shop, Mark. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, Sean. It's always good to see you. It's been a minute, but we go way back, and so it's good to rekindle.
For sure it is. For sure it is. I'm really glad that you're here. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you. I think the dealers are going to learn a lot about SKAIVISION. And I want to start with what types of dealership challenges can SKAIVISION and computer vision identify that humans often miss?
Yeah, it's well, the biggest thing is that the camera is, when you talk about missing, it's 24/7. And unless one is down, that consistency of collection and consistency of throughput in terms of automating the keystrokes and triggering the APIs, I think that consistency is a big starting factor. As far as the types of things that the camera is aiding most in, one now, just because it's such a big initiative for most dealer groups, is on the acquisition side, with first identifying vehicles on premise and customers on premise, since they arrive sometimes without appointments, early, late, etc. So the acquisition side's normally where we start, and then express service is the second really big piece in terms of customer experience and what we can do to improve.
Mm. I know SKAIVISION does a lot of things that dealers are definitely not yet. Some are, but not all familiar with. So I'm curious, and I know the dealers will be as well. How does SKAIVISION convert raw video data into meaningful operational insights?
Yes, you literally have to custom build each model in terms of full object tracking of vehicles and humans throughout a space or the environment. You've got to anonymize that, and you've got to build models for what we consider pivotal process pieces. In fact, components like customer greeting, occurred or not, walk around, occurred or not. There may be timing of events leaving or entering premise, or getting from one stage of a process to another. But the chain event sequencing that you've got to do to make multi-camera computer vision work, very complex. Some of those models over a year each, with multiple developers on a single model.
It's fascinating. Like, who would have thought we'd have technology like this for dealerships? Like, I guess somebody probably guessed that it would happen, but it's very fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's happened a lot. I think that the consumers have led a lot of the dealerships that we talk to, when they look at the vehicles they're selling and see how much the consumer likes the computer vision. They all want the 360 dash cam. Everyone wants the cameras to do more. Every vehicle, as we improve it, seems to have more cameras on it each year, and more in terms of what the customers want from the cameras. And I think that transfers over to retail settings as well. And in automotive, really lends itself to being able to help.
Yeah, it certainly makes a lot of sense. Well, let me ask you this. What are the most common fixed ops bottlenecks SKAIVISION sees across dealerships and dealer groups?
Yeah, I touched on early express service by far and away. When customers come in for light work, and that is primarily usually 60% of the customer interactions in any dealership per day are express service related. And since it's why most people show up at our door each day, it needs to be expedient and it needs to be a positive outcome in terms of the customer's perception. And it's also one of the toughest to nail with consistency, because there are a lot of moving pieces involved. But when I say light work, if we're going to end up selling less than an hour and a half of work to the customer really, our goal should be for them to be out in an hour or less. And the goal should be not to have an extreme negative outcome of, say, 3 hours, 2.5 hours on site, to have light work performed. And so when we typically go into a dealership, unfortunately, those really good outcomes, the really bad outcomes are about in line in terms of number that are occurring per day. And so we're trying to drive one up and one down. And it's that's where the process adjustments come in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm guessing that there are some KPIs that you guys follow that you typically are improving. So the question would be, what KPIs does SKAIVISION usually improve? Is it wait time, throughput, ROI count, and maybe service advisor engagement times, or maybe it's all of the above?
Yeah, I'd say all of the above are big that you mentioned. Very, very insightful, because the overall total cycle time for true express non-upsell is a huge barometer on what your average is at the store. However, when you break that down, it's typically not at the rack with the technician that delays. It's typically either at the staging right up before it gets to the rack, or after it gets from the rack to the customer's hands with delivery. And you've got to get really granular in determining, are our typical problems with our flow and our setup, or when our processes come off the rails, is it before the repair order is opened in the DMS or service system? Is it after the repair order is opened before it gets to the rack in a staging area where it can go into a black hole or some parking space or some technician advisor technician communication issue, or is it on the delivery side? A lot of times that's harder to control, but with the delivery side, is it happening before the wash, after the wash? What point are we vulnerable there? So you have to break all of those down and look at those as a whole. And you have to look at, store, obviously, franchise, location, physical space. There are no two setups that are exactly the same, but those KPIs are big. And in terms of where we start with with automating the service to sales process in a very diplomatic way, like letting the camera trigger that KPI, the big one, is what percentage of your repair orders, customer pay and warranty are you converting to acquisitions, and what percentage of those acquisitions involve a trade, and what percentage are pure. And that's a big KPI that also has sub data sets involved. We didn't expect. We now have 100% of our dealerships use the us to trigger that process with the customer when they arrive, as far as the on-site conversation. We think that a big reason is the camera being involved, identifying the vehicle. It's not dependent on the human opening the repair order. That could happen late. There could be a data problem involved, or delays are very common with the APIs between systems. But knowing that the camera caught that vehicle and we're going to get the right message to the customer has become an animal of its own. We literally have to go through with language models, as you see now, computer vision models integrating with language models, and these VLMs, the video language models, as they morph together, becoming a huge new deal. And we run language models on everything that we do. So, for instance, we have conversations with around 3 million customers in service waiting rooms every month, and involving the the attempted acquisition of their vehicle, or if they are offering the convenience, if it's something that they want to look at getting quick figures on while they're there. And we run a big part of what we try to identify is running the algorithms on what conversation led to the outcome of acquisition. And in what type of vehicle age would we need to discuss payment? When do they care about value? When do they care about, repair order status and more? It's a huge balancing act that is not a one size fits all, and you can't just let a language model run wild. You couldn't just set ChatGPT up and let it go with customers in the waiting room. It does not produce the outcome. The consistency is not there. So you literally have to set up those regex flows custom geographically and by franchise.
Yeah, this is very fascinating to me. I think it's interesting because as I listen to you, I think SKAIVISION actually is having a positive effect on increasing revenue and profitability in a lot of different areas of the dealership that they probably don't think about on the surface level. For example, on the acquisition side, right? That is absolutely tied to a layer of profitability in the dealership. People that might be trading in a vehicle that happens to go through the process and the workflows inside the dealership, that becomes another area of profitability for dealers, not to mention the opportunities for them to sell their clients into a new vehicle. There's just some very interesting layers here that as I listen to you, I think dealers will be really excited about and probably maybe have never thought about before.
Yeah,
I know one thing. Yeah, go ahead.
The speed and the simplicity. What you said was nail on the head in terms of a easy to point to return on investment that's inarguable is the VIN-to-VIN aspect of that. And sadly, if you go into most systems in a dealership and reporting tools that they're involved with daily, it's very difficult for them to tell you how many customer pay and warranty RO VINs ended up in their inventory in a 30, 45, or 60-day window that they consider triggered off the lane, and in really what had to happen. So when we report not only all deals they did off the lane, but those that we had to target with the license plate text offer, and then those that our agent had to go in and buy the store time and basically go all the way through a workflow, sometimes to go to the reception desk and ask for GSM by name in order to get the figures or demo that they need. And we call those agent acquired, that the agent had to, the team was just busy, and Murphy's Law kicked in and the agent had to go all the way through with the customer. So being able to report on that is something that we see dealers really like, the transparency, because it's not murky ROI, it's true VIN to VIN. So that's, you're absolutely right. That's been a big piece of the puzzle.
So as I listen to you, Mark, I can't help but think how SKAIVISION really is helping the dealerships with profitability across many different departments. Of course, in the acquisition side, which of course cascades into so many other areas, trade-ins, and obviously what you can do with a smart operation there, new vehicle sales. But the acquisition area is very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's one that I don't think there's any dealership that is not focused on more and more this year, as far as trying to buy from the pump and buy from the lane. However, it is an extremely complicated and easily breakable process. And that's whether you're staffed lean, staffed hybrid, not staffed at all, staffed strong with full-time acquisition team, doesn't matter. It's still very breakable. So speed and simplicity is what we're seeing as normal. No surprise there. Fast and very easy is how most of us like it in this industry, and the consumers, the customers, the partners on that side like it as well. And so being able to go straight camera and have that initiate and go plate to VIN, VIN to value, and then take the flow in a way that's good for the customer. We've just learned a lot. And we had written in our prioritize and exchange tool to bolt with the CRM within. That's for some groups that wanted to organically live in the CRM, and how much it's changed and is changing each year is just incredible in terms of the agentic flow. We're needing to, number one, pick up the timing and speed of getting this offer conversation started with the customer, being able to not rely on the humans to create the repair order and not rely on any data delays that could be intrinsic there, but to be able to go straight camera with the initiation of the process, and then to be able to be flexible in terms of what a customer, whether they bought at the dealership or didn't buy at the dealership, whether they're more payment focused or value given to them focused, or vehicle availability on what's in inventory, and VDP focused on what they might demo while they're there for service, or most of them just want very transparent, fast, automated figures without having to wait for someone on the team to free up when they're in the waiting room. A lot of them don't really want the face-to-face connection and being taken through the multi-step process unless they are pre-informed of what they can do. And they're really, what's changed a lot is the customer's patience level with being pounded with this information before they get to the dealership when they schedule service, because it does take effort to schedule service. So most communication prior to arrival, they want to make sure you understand why they're coming in for service. And they've been hit with the message, we want to buy your vehicle, we want your vehicle, so much that the immunity they've built up to that, you've really got to tee it off the right way. It's got to change every month or every other month. It's really so much complexity, but it's harder now to start it before or after the visit. But that time that they're there, that's the sweet spot where you can really hockey stick of a dealership's acquisition rate, is by doing it correctly while the customer's there. And what we're seeing is that we're able to get, with the license plate text offer, we're able to get across the board, if you blend Highline, which can be as high as 35% hand raiser, to certain dealerships or geographic areas to be as low as 10-15, but we're seeing across the board around a 20% hand raiser rate, and that good stores that work the process that we've got in place are converting about 10% of those hand raisers same day. And that translates into about 2% of repair orders, customer pay or warranty. Great dealerships doing 3% or more of ROs. Unfortunately, the reality when we come in and run our baseline exercise and look at the VIN-to-VIN analysis is that the average dealership is purchasing about 0.7% of their ROs off the lane. And sometimes they're, because of some murky ROI of blending other types of leads or buying processes, that's sometimes an unpleasant surprise when they do the VIN-to-VIN analysis.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that adds up for a dealership very quickly.
Does.
Those are dramatic. That's a pretty big contrast between what you see in the average and then what happens when you have installed SKAIVISION. You mentioned CRM, and I know that SKAIVISION integrates with CRM and DMS, I believe. So I wonder if you have any other thoughts you might want to share on, maybe there's some fixed ops tools too, but how those integrations correlate video events with RO data, with repair order data.
That's really the, I think one of the holy grails with computer vision inside of the dealership retail space is the correlation you mentioned, because unfortunately, the majority of the time, in many cases, where the vehicle and customer are don't align with where the user base is and their software clicks of the process. So software may say one thing in terms of transaction and video see another. And so being able to blend those and give other systems that data, we have been very intentional in webhooking every piece of our interface in every model so that every we, in a single dealership of what they call meaningful data collection, we can see 150,000 AI events, computer vision events in a day, but distilling that down into the pieces that this system wants, this other system may want here, and being able to deliver that to them, to be checks and balance for their own data. That's something that we see. I mean, it's over now 20 different vendors have approached this and have said, hey, we want to receive this data from you. And some dealer groups that have their own software systems and their own data lakes and CDPs, they want that data to reside in their own warehouses for good reason. But when you look at some of the integrations that we're being presented with that will happen this year in terms of putting the video event with where the software is, whether it's at repair order open, MPI goes out, invoice goes out, and what the transparency you can give to the customer in terms of looking behind the curtain when their vehicle's coming off a lift or going on and the car's going through a wash, being able to marry that to other systems' vehicle journey tracking is a big transparency and customer experience boost that is much needed in our space.
Mm-hmm. You and I have been in this industry for a long time, and so we have seen this when new technology is introduced to dealers. A lot of times they'll ask this question, so I kind of feel like I'm very much asking this one on behalf of dealers, which would be, what does the implementation of SKAIVISION look like for a dealership or for a group in terms of equipment or setup or training?
Yeah, we've tried it different ways, and we've landed on something that's working now, and that is to start one camera, one use case, and that is the acquisition case. In the majority, some dealerships will have a specific, they'll say, hey, we want to connect to these cameras and do this. And they'll say, this is where we want to start. It's why we're coming to you. But when most dealerships come in and say, how do we start to incorporate computer vision and go to a smart video thesis for our future and for our stores and for multi-store data gathering? The best way to start it is because you can do it with one entry cam at curb cut or connecting to an existing camera or existing lane tool that has a camera, is that acquisition piece, because it's going to give the dealership immediate impact in terms of 2 weeks to get it up and going is the average, sometimes in a week or less to have it up from the time the dealership says go. And that speed to implementation and showing that that ROI gets a lot of attention. And then the dealership says, what do you mean there's more potential with fixed ops on the express service improvement, and how that can impact retention and as you said, express RO count, service gross. That piece normally is up within 2 weeks. And for the express service implementation, that's typically a 30 to 45 day to hook into several existing cameras they have that they want to use in the flow, to pop in cameras that are missing. They may not have entry or exit camera coverage. They may not have express rack camera coverage. So typically you end up, depending on the size of the dealership, saying, hey, if you look at Sky in a Box, do you check here if we need to pop in 5, 10, or 15 cameras, and pop in your mothership, your appliance there, to digest it all? That's more of a 45-day exercise. But the first piece is up in 2 weeks, and then usually 30 days later, the full system can be up. And then after a bit of time, normally 60, 90 days, the dealership will come back and say, hey, we have this other camera. It's on our EV charger and we want this analysis. Or, hey, we want to hook you into our customer waiting room camera and let us know when it's full, or when someone hasn't been touched in an hour and we've lost them. There usually will be, or there's a blind side of the lot here and you need to tell us when people have been looking around for 20 minutes and no one's assisted them or greeted them. There will be other spaces that they want to fill once they get up and going for 60, 90 days, but you've got to start with the basics. And I really have come to believe with some of the success I've seen with some of the Southeast Toyota stores in terms of their cycle time improvements, some other big groups whose leaders are extremely focused right now on that being the critical component in terms of how will we earn the right to transact for additional vehicles with that customer and their family, how we earn the right to get the rest of their express work and retain them for that and heavy work that comes with it. But the importance of producing positive, consistent outcomes with express service has been eye-opening journey for me, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fascinating technology, and I think even with some would consider the complexity of it one where I think that they would expect that it would take longer to kind of be up and running, make sure everything's working, but to be able to within the first 2 weeks have the gears working within 30 days, and then you just continue to expand from there based on need and where you're really wanting to focus. That sounds like a very quick turnaround to start to see this take action very quickly, which I'm sure dealers will really appreciate that. Well, a couple of things I want to ask you before we land the plane here, and one is, how are you basically planning with SKAIVISION to stay ahead of new operational challenges?
Yeah, keeping the models. We've got a backlog of models to be produced, and we just had a successful patent in that area in terms of what we're able to speed up with data collection and producing those models. But we've got a long-term roadmap in place, and what we have to do to hit it is stay lean, stay with a high sense of urgency, and be nimble enough to react as things change, because things just in the first few years of this, big things have changed several times that forced us to address a need that customers and dealers agreed was paramount. And you've got to be able to to capture that speed to market with additional feature sets is huge for us. And they come along all the time. I mean, you have a huge expertise in the social world, and something that's recently become a high priority for stores was the fact that the certain trusted content that, as search engines now or AI search, as you know, what's deemed trusted versus not so, and how you get your name inserted into search results. We've seen that really takes a big, consistent upward trajectory of that dealership's name being seen by trusted sources. And one trusted source are certain types of reviews that we see that when dealerships have great outcomes with customers, you have to get the opportunity in front of that customer, the propensity to lean in favorably for that dealership on the review side is going to be huge when you've gotten that customer in and out in 35, 40 minutes for service. And they trumpet that. And when you're doing that consistently, you can really produce huge results that we've been asked to add some functionality around.
Exciting times. So last question I have for you is, where is computer vision headed in the dealership environment over, say, the next 3 to 5 years?
Boy, that's a big one that's hard to nail, because it does fluctuate, and that's a moving target. However, we do see that as the customer journey for what they're looking for in terms of an overview with the cameras on their vehicle is something that we're seeing a theme with the dealerships. They seem to have to be gravitating towards an ask of, give me a look that incorporates all my cameras. Give me a look at what's going on. And you do need to be connected to DMS, as you said, service systems, inventory, CRM. Be connected to those and give me almost a kind of Google Earth or Google Street view of my facility, and let me see how many vehicles, even if they're just, matchbox car representation size, but green, yellow, red in terms of how many are right now in staging and how many are in danger, how many on the racks, how many have already gotten through, how many at delivery are ready, what vehicles have I got out on test drive, what's come through. They want an overview that lets them see what's in play at the dealership. Filter out the noise, filter out the loaners, the deliveries, everything going on, and just give me customers, sales and service, true traffic count with what's going on around me. Give me a visual representation and breakdown of my camera system. And when you look at what's going to be available to a dealership in 3 to 5 years, they literally will be able to pick up their device and see what's going on with the store, and then what is at risk of being an unacceptable transactional time frame with customers on site.
Absolutely fascinating. That wraps up another episode of In the Shop. Thank you, Mark. That was amazing. Your knowledge and insights were fantastic. Dealers, SKAIVISION is clearly a company worth learning more about. So don't hesitate to jump into theshop.com. That's your go-to marketplace for Ford dealers and Lincoln retailers, so you can dive deeper. And you definitely want to dive deeper with SKAIVISION. Also would say, hey, jump over on LinkedIn and look up Mark Queen and connect with him over there, so you've got another connection in your network. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned. We'll be back before you know it with more episodes featuring the trusted partners who help your dealership run smarter, drive growth, and stay ahead in an ever-changing market. Until next time, thanks for sharing your time with us. We'll see you back here soon in the shop.
Catch up with you, Sean.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.